to do something with the RX-7 that I have just been putting off because I don't want to do it. You know, there's those things when it comes to your project cars where you don't want to do it, but you gotta do it. I messed up when I built this engine. I was not aware that I needed to use some type of sealant or sealer on the sealing washers that go on the back of the engine. The sealing washers essentially keep water and coolant in the engine. And when you swap over to these like 10 mil studs that I have in there, you have to put sealant on the sealing washers, and I didn't do that. Now there's two solutions to this. A, we can either pull the engine and do it that way. That sounds worse. B, we can drop the transmission. Now it's gonna be fairly easy to drop a transmission on this car because it's not all-wheel drive like it is on like a WRX or an STI where it's a huge pain in the ass to take out the transmission. They're super heavy. These ones don't look too heavy and they seem pretty easy to take out. And if you don't know how to take out a transmission, there's a couple things you need to take out to get the transmission out. You have to pull out the drive shaft, undo the transmission mount. In our case, it's a PPF power plant frame, starter, slave cylinder, bell housing bolts, disengage the throwout bearing from the pressure plate, and then we should be good there to pull this thing out. Oh, and disconnect the shifter from up top. So let's start with just draining out fluid. We'll start easy. Okay, there it is. Should be brand new fluid. The last owner put it in. So we'll let this drain for a couple minutes. Plug back in. Boom, slave cylinders out. Oh, dude, this is gonna fucking suck. Oh God, my nuts and my diff. Okay, well, I'm gonna grab a jack to support this rear diff. There it goes. Oh my God, so we have the transmission out, we've got the clutch off, the flywheel off, the power plant frame brace, all the stuff. So now I can actually get to the back of the engine, get the stud nuts off, and get anaerobic sealer on the actual sealing washers. Now I'm gonna have to do this one at a time, and I'll probably go in a star pattern to be able to get them all. So let me show you. There's a lot of stuff everywhere. I opted to use my engine brace to keep the engine just kind of in place right now, so when I go to put the transmission back in, it'll be easy to get back in. But we've got the transmission out right here. Thankfully, this thing is pretty light and it's not that heavy. Flywheel, clutch, pressure plate, drive shaft, starter, dump tube, more stuff down there like braces and whatnot. The power plant frame brace, which this is really weird. It holds up literally the transmission, the diff, everything like that underneath of the car. That's why I wanted to get this frame engine stand hoist thingy just right there to keep it in place. Now back here is what I needed to access all of these nuts going around. I'm gonna have to take them off one at a time, get anaerobic sealer on the sealing washer, get it back on, retorque it down, then go to the next one. If we didn't do this, the backside of the engine would leak all of the water out, and you know, if I gotta fix it, I'd rather do it now versus later, because it's obviously just not a fun job to do. You gotta take the whole transmission out, obviously. So, let me go find some anaerobic sealer and let's start sealing the backside of this engine up. So I just looked on Turblown's website and they didn't necessarily say what kind of sealant to use. They just said a silicone-based one, and I've had good experience with like water and cooling jacket stuff using Ultra Gray. So snag the tube Ultra Gray, go down there, start pulling these nuts and bolts, or these nuts and sealing washers off one by one, sealing them up, retorquing them back down, and then we're gonna have to let all this stuff sit for at least a couple hours and then we can come back and get the flywheel and all that fun stuff on. In the meantime, if my ignition system gets dropped off, we can get that set up and get that in the car. But for now, let's start resealing this, the backside of this iron. Hours in the future, I've let that sealant kind of cure. I just wanted to make sure that everything was like minty on it. I don't have a coolant system pressure tester for RX7s. There's like a specific one you can buy that hooks up to the engine, so that way you can test the coolant to make sure that it'll hold pressure. I'm fairly confident I used a generous amount of that Loctite Ultra Gray on there. I took all the nuts off one at a time, went back through, retorqued them down to 40 foot-pounds, so we should be solid on that. The radiator hoses show up tomorrow, so I mean, I'm gonna put the transmission and everything back in. It's pretty easy to take it out and put it back in. I'm gonna have to get some gear oil ordered on payday. I'll look up and see what's good for RX7s, but let's go ahead and get the clutch, flywheel, all that fun stuff thrown back in, because I want this adventure to be over with. As much as I've enjoyed disassembling everything I've already reassembled. Before we do that though, I guess it's fair to show you guys, went through, you can still see a little bit of sealant left on some of those like head nut top guys. So we got our counterweight, the big ass nut, which sucks to torque down. All of our studs are retorqued back down, so we should be good to go in theory. So let's get down here reassembled, get our transmission put back in here. I'm gonna leave the shifter out because I have a cube one coming from Australia to replace the OEM one. So in the meantime, let's start putting this guy back together. So it's the next day, you guys. We have the transmission, the starter, everything put back in the car. I have one thing left to do, and that's just plug in the 4 electrical connections for the transmission. We'll do that here in a couple minutes, but I just got some stuff dropped off by USPS that are all for the RX-7. I'm big hyped about one of them because it's about to significantly clean up the inside of the car. I am so very glad that this is put back together. Don't have to deal with that anymore. But check this stuff out. So first of all, we got our new OEM upper and lower radiator hoses. We got in a whole bunch of couplers that we're going to be tossing on, pie cuts and whatnot to be able to figure out the intercooler piping. Set that right there. I also got in the ignition coils. I am waiting on the brackets for these and the spark plug wires for those. But the big thing that I'm excited about is this, God, what is it? Z Precision bracket for the RX-7. And what this is going to do is it's going to hold our Haltech all nicely on this bracket like that. And then our wideband controller also. Now it does come with this big like little slide guy, so that would essentially just kind of slide right in right there and then sit down. And then if you're using the big CAN adapter, that would normally just slide in here in this little bracketed area. But I'll put this on just so that way we have it there. It's extra security measure, I guess. And then this entire bracket assembly will bolt in where the old ECU went in the car. So big hyped on this to be able to get that in. So this is the first thing I want to do is go ahead and get all of that set up with the hardware, get everything kind of put in here, figure out the cables that are going to plug in like the Haltech to the Haltech, or the wideband controller to the Haltech, and get that one permanently plugged in. So let's start with this bracket and get this in the interior, so that way we can start cleaning up this massive mess down here. We're gonna have to come back in here in a couple minutes because, dude, I was just sweating nuts down here. It was fucking, I gotta take a break from being in here. But Haltech is all mounted up over there in the corner. Once we get all the wires and everything tucked back up there, I'll actually like show you guys how everything looks. It looks freaking nice though. So I got all the new couplers in, hose clamps, things like that for in here. So, and since we have the radiator hose, I'd like to cut and modify that. So let's just jump up into the engine bay real quick. I'm gonna run through here, knock out a lot of this little stuff, and then we'll jump back up in there and start tucking all those wires away to get the interior looking nice and pretty, because that's what we want. So I'm getting a lot of the smaller stuff knocked out. We got the radiator hoses figured out. As you guys saw in the beginning of the video, we got the bypass valve on there. I tried clocking this turbo literally any other way, and there's no other way. That compressor housing is just so big. I tried to cut down the water pump housing back there to be able to get the turbo to point the other way. Didn't happen. Tried to have it going so the compressor outlet was this way. Not gonna work. There's just no freaking room anywhere with the size of this turbo. It's just so freaking big that there's no other way to do this. So I think this is what we're going to end up having to figure out. Obviously a 90-degree isn't going to cut it. I literally cannot put the turbo down any more than that. So that is literally all of the clearance that I have to work with. So I think I'm gonna get this is a 90, I think I'm gonna order 120 or 135 degree coupler to make it be able to come off like that, to be able to connect up to this piping here. Just add a small straight right there, bead roll it, and then that will be our second intercooler pipe. I opted to keep the hot side intercooler piping at 2.5 inch because it's such a tight fit over here. The other option was 2 3/4. I decided to step it down from the intercooler from 2 3/4 down to 2.5 to be able to make it just fit over here. Like I said, it's just such a tight fit, but I think this will work. I tried to get it to sit as low as possible because the biggest thing is I want to make sure that the hood's going to be able to close without any issue, without hitting the intercooler piping or anything like that. So that's pretty much figured out at this point. Like I said, radiator hoses are on, upper and lower. I'm waiting on the other coupler for right down there. It's a 90-degree fitting for that radiator hose, and then the cooling system I believe should for the most part be wrapped up. We are going to be deleting the coolant that runs to the throttle body, and I think I'm going to buy the JP3 coolant bleed. It's like this little like coolant bleeder guy that sits up here and it goes to the top iron where it would normally go to the throttle body, but I think I'm just going to delete that and get that little kit. But dude, it's looking good. Everything must be black or shiny in this engine bay because I want it to look minty, and it's definitely looking minty. I also got the relocation bracket for all the fan relays over here that used to sit here. They'll sit down there, and then I'm going to move that boost controller up here because it's got a nice little mount. JP3 makes them, so really excited for that. Now we can come back up into the interior. I'm going to go into Satan's butthole down there and start cleaning up all that wiring the best that I can right now. So I guess let's jump back in here. So I'd say it cleaned up a lot of the stuff pretty nicely. I'm gonna have to fish up some of those excess wires up through the firewall. I need to find a home for that relay box for the coil packs, but aside from that, everything else just tucked up real freaking nice. Behind there's just a ton of wires, dude. There's just so much stuff. That's just one of the pros and cons of like building your own harnesses. A pro is like you can make it exactly the length that you need, but you got to take all the time to build it, whereas like buying a pre-built harness, it saves a lot of time, but it's never, things are just never the right length, so you have to go back and like make things work, and it's kind of annoying at times, but it's no big deal. But that's where I'm stopping today, you guys. I am like super sweaty, I'm super hot, I'm tired. A lot of progress made on this thing. A lot of the stressors I was worried about are kind of gone now because we had to go back and fix some of the stuff like the rear irons, the oil pan leak, things like that. It's all fixed now. So now it's literally just putting everything back together, getting a base tune loaded on this thing and starting it up. The only real things I'm waiting on to get this car running are the excessive lower intake manifold, the Turblown upper intake manifold, but that one's on pre-order right now and is set to ship like early August. I need a catback and I need 2 more fuel injectors. Once we have all of that, we should be good to start this thing, get it driving, get it on the road. A ton of progress on this FD. We've had this thing 2 months. 2 months. Hasn't ran in 10 years and now it's super close to starting up again. In the next FD video, we'll probably start finishing or figuring out the last of the intercooler piping, knocking out the last of the small stuff, and then from there it's just a waiting game. I might do a video on trying to restore the paint. I don't know. We'll see, but like I said, that's all I got for you guys on this one. So if you like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, silver, cyan, whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be, I'll put it in one of these corners. No idea which one quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies. Woo!